Welcome to This Explainer. Let's get right into it. You know exactly what you want to say in an interview, right? You know your experience, you know your achievements inside and out, and you've probably even prepared some fantastic answers. But here's the real challenge. Can you communicate all of that in English in a way that sounds confident, highly professional, and totally natural? Today, we're going to upgrade the English you use to communicate your professional value. We're going to master those interview communication skills so you can go in there and get hired.
First things first, I want you to ask yourself a deeply important question. Are you actually showing your full value? Because honestly, sometimes your current everyday English might not be showing the interviewer the true depth of your experience. When we rely on basic English to describe complex professional achievements, we might accidentally be hiding our true value. It's like having a high-performance engine, but driving in first gear.
Okay, let's dive into this right now. Picture yourself in the hot seat, and you say, I help the team. Now, that's fine, but maybe you actually coordinated a cross-functional team. Or you might say, I made the process easier, when what you really did was streamline the reporting process. Or maybe you say, I worked on a project, when in reality, you spearheaded a massive initiative. We're not here to talk about basic interview strategy today. You already know all that. Today is purely about upgrading your language, polishing your delivery, and making your English do the heavy lifting for you.
Let's kick things off with our very first power verb, spearhead. It means to lead an activity, a project, or an initiative. And I want you to listen closely to how I say it. Spearhead. Do you hear where the stress lands? It's right there on the first syllable. Spearhead. Come on, say it out loud with me wherever you are right now. Spearhead. In a business context, you could say, she spearheaded the company's expansion into a new market. It just sounds incredibly dynamic, doesn't it?
Notice how this completely transforms an interview answer? A basic response might be, I led a team to fix a problem. Sure, it's grammatically correct, but it's super general. Now look at this professional upgrade. I spearheaded a cross-functional team to resolve a critical bottleneck. Notice what happened there. We didn't just swap out a single word. We added pinpoint precision. You're no longer just stating what you did. You're actively showing ownership and initiative. So I want you to pause for a second. Think of something you've led in your career and finish this sentence out loud. I spearheaded.
Excellent job. Now let's move on to our second power word, streamline. To streamline means to make a process simpler, faster, or altogether more effective. This is an absolutely crucial word because in the modern business world, you can streamline a process, a system, a workflow, or a reporting procedure. For instance, I streamlined the customer onboarding process, reducing the time required by 30%. A really common mistake I see learners make is just saying, I made the process easier. We understand what that means, sure, but streamline is so much more precise. Plus, as a nice little bonus, it instantly makes you sound like a highly capable efficiency expert.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer power of precise vocabulary. Compare a basic phrase like, I made the reporting process easier, with this professional upgrade, I streamlined the reporting process, reducing the time required to complete it. The professional version doesn't just list an action you took, it actively communicates the actual business impact of that action.
Which brings us to a major English effect pro tip. And honestly, it's one of my absolute favorites. Don't just describe what you did, show what changed because you did it. When you start dropping in elevated verbs like spearhead and streamline, you naturally force your language away from passive, boring descriptions and straight into demonstrating measurable, highly valued business impact.
Now, there is another absolutely essential part of professional English that so many learners just completely overlook. It's not enough to memorize individual vocabulary words. It's like a giant puzzle. You need to know which pieces naturally fit together. We call these combinations collocations. For example, we wouldn't say I made efficiency. We naturally say I improved efficiency. We don't say I did a strategy. We say I developed a strategy. And rather than saying I solved a bottleneck, a native speaker would say I identified a bottleneck, addressed a bottleneck, or removed a bottleneck. Learning words in these reusable chunks is the absolute secret to sounding fluid and natural. Fun fact, research actually shows that mastering collocations is the fastest way to trick a native speaker into thinking you've been speaking the language since birth.
Okay, here's another incredibly powerful interview word, but this time it's an adjective. Resilient. Resilient describes someone who can bounce back from difficulty and just keep performing effectively. You can have a resilient employee, a resilient team, or talk about being resilient under pressure. For example, you might confidently say, I'm a resilient problem solver who remains focused under pressure. It's just a fantastic, sophisticated way to describe how quickly you adapt to change.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is our next crucial pro tip. Memorize language patterns, not scripts. Look, I don't want you to just memorize the sentence, "I'm a resilient problem solver," and repeat it like a robot. You need to build your own. "I'm a resilient team leader," or "I'm a resilient professional who adapts quickly to change." If you try to memorize an entire interview answer word for word, you're going to sound rehearsed and rigid. But if you internalize these flexible language patterns, you can adapt them naturally and confidently to literally whatever question the interviewer throws your way.
Let's shift gears from vocabulary over to phrases. Imagine the interviewer asks you for an example of dealing with a difficult client. You definitely don't want to start with, yeah, so there was this one time. Instead, deploy a phrase builder. Try starting with, "One example that comes to mind is," or "I recall a situation where," and hey, what happens if you get a curveball question you totally weren't expecting? Don't panic and just say, or "I don't know." Actually, scratch that. We've all panicked before, but instead of showing it, calmly say, "That's an interesting question. Let me think about that for a moment." Listen to that natural rhythm. These phrases don't just sound incredibly professional, they actively buy you the thinking time you need to organize your thoughts without any awkward silence.
Now, professional communication isn't only about the words you choose on paper, it's heavily about how you physically sound. Listen to the difference in delivery here. First, completely flat. "I spearheaded a new strategy." Now, let's add some stress. "I spearheaded a new strategy." Do you hear how the important words carry more weight? That's called sentence stress. You don't stress every single word, that just sounds robotic and weird. You highlight the words that carry the actual meaning. And remember the confidence curve with your voice. Open your answer calmly, build up your energy when describing your achievements using that sentence stress, and finish with a warm, professional close. You don't need to be loud or aggressive, just genuinely engaged.
Okay, let's pivot to a tiny grammar distinction that packs a massive punch for precision. When you're describing what happened in a specific past situation, you use the past simple. "I created the dashboard." Boom, done. But when you want to emphasize an effect that continues right into the present day, the present perfect is your absolute best friend. Since then, the team has used it every week. Look at that contrast. Past event, "I created the dashboard." Continuing business impact, since then, the team has used it every week. It's such a small grammatical shift, but it allows you to tell a beautifully sophisticated story about your long-term value.
Now, I know you already know the STAR method from our earlier explainers, so we definitely aren't going to reteach that today. But let's use it quickly as a familiar framework to show off today's language. Imagine you're asked about improving a process. A basic, forgettable answer says, "It saved us a lot of time." But an upgraded, precise answer sounds more like this: "I identified a bottleneck and took the initiative to develop an automated dashboard. As a result, we reduced reporting time from 3 hours to 45 minutes. Look at the result there. 3 hours down to 45 minutes. That isn't just a claim. That is undeniable concrete evidence.
That perfectly lines up with our next pro tip. Quantify your achievements whenever possible. You should constantly be asking yourself, by how much? How many? How quickly? What was the percentage? Injecting specific numbers into your answers transforms a vague, general claim into hard, specific evidence that a hiring manager simply cannot ignore.
Let's move to and see how this builds when we apply today's advanced vocabulary to some of the most common interview situations. When they ask, "Tell me about yourself," drop in patterns like specializing in or looking to leverage my experience. If they ask how you handle pressure, instead of just claiming you're great at it, explain how you prioritize competing deadlines and coordinated with stakeholders. And what about resolving conflict? Don't just call yourself a peacemaker, explain how you focus the discussion on shared objectives and ultimately reached a mutual agreement. This is precise, high-level professional English that proves your communication skills and your professional judgment all at once.
So, the crucial point is you've got to actually practice this stuff. It is time for the 90-second speaking challenge. I want you to pick one specific professional achievement from your own career. Prepare a 90-second answer. But your goal today is to actively upgrade your English. I want you to use at least 3 professional action verbs we covered, like spearheaded or streamlined. Throw in at least 2 phrase builders, like one example that comes to mind is. Then, grab your phone and record yourself twice. The first time, focus purely on getting the language right. The second time, focus on your delivery. Hit that sentence stress. Use natural pauses. Make sure you sound conversational, not like you're reading a script.
If you take away just one single thing from our explainer today, let it be this core philosophy. Your experience may get you into the interview, but your communication helps the interviewer understand its value. You have already put in the hard work throughout your career. Now it's time to make sure your English is doing the work to showcase it brilliantly.
To help you keep practicing and really lock this in, make sure to download your free Vocabulary Companion Workbook. It has all of today's vocabulary cards, phrase builders, and English upgrades ready for you. Before you click away, ask yourself this. If your absolute dream company called you for an interview 5 minutes from right now, would your English rise to the level of your expertise, or would it hold you back? To make absolutely sure you're ready, go download that workbook. And if you found this explainer useful, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who is prepping for their next big interview. Until next time, keep learning, keep practicing, keep believing in yourself, and remember, embrace English excellence.